You two need to step away from that vehicle. Right now. Hands where I can see them." The voice came sharp and fast, like a crack of dry wood, laced with the kind of authority that expects no pushback and offers none in return. Officer Derek Callahan was 29 years old, 6'2", and had been on the Hargrove County Sheriff's Department for 4 years, long enough to develop a posture that said he had seen everything. But not long enough to understand what seeing everything actually meant. He stood at the edge of the gas station canopy, one hand loose near his holster, his partner, Officer Travis Weems, flanking the other side of the pump, their cruiser's light still cycling blue and red across the concrete even though they had parked without a call, without a dispatch, without a single piece of evidence that anything at all was wrong. Marcus Webb, 44, and his brother Darnell, 41, had stopped for gas on their way back from a funeral. They were dressed in the dark clothes you wear when you bury someone you loved. Marcus in a black suit jacket over a gray shirt. Darnell in a button-down that had gone soft from too many washes and too many years. They were not arguing. They were not drinking. Marcus had been pumping gas, and Darnell had been leaning against the passenger door, eating a pack of crackers from inside, the way you do when you haven't eaten all day, and grief has made you hollow, and you need something small and simple to get through the next hour. The car was a 2018 Camry, clean, registered, insured. Neither man had moved fast. Neither man had done anything at all except exist in a gas station parking lot in the late afternoon of a Thursday in October. Marcus turned slowly, the way you learn to turn, arms already rising, his face carrying the particular exhaustion of a man who has been through this before and knows that speed is a liability and stillness is a prayer. Darnell lowered his crackers. His jaw was tight. His eyes moved from Officer Callahan to Officer Weems and back, measuring, not challenging, just measuring the distance between where this was and where it could go. "Officers," Marcus said quietly, "we're just getting gas." "I didn't ask you a question," Callahan said. He was walking toward them now, unhurried, something almost theatrical in the way he moved, because there were 2 other cars at the pumps, and a woman watching from inside the glass door of the station, and he knew they were being watched, and he did not mind it. "Both of you, step to the rear of the vehicle. Now." They complied. Of course they complied. The compliance was not weakness, and it was not fear, and it was not agreement. It was the calculation that men in their position make without even knowing they are making it anymore. The arithmetic of survival dressed up as cooperation. Marcus moved to the back of the Camry and put his hands on the trunk, and Darnell stood beside him with his crackers still in his hand, and the October wind moved through the gas station canopy and rattled a plastic bag caught in the fence at the edge of the lot. Weems moved around the side of the car and looked through the windows, his flashlight cutting through the back seat even though it was still full daylight. He tried the door handle. It was locked, and something about the locked doors seemed to irritate him, though he said nothing yet. "You have ID on you?" Callahan asked. "Yes, sir," Marcus said. He began to move one hand toward his jacket pocket. Slowly. "Yes, sir." He produced his wallet and held it out. Callahan took it, opened it, looked at the license, and then looked at Marcus the way men look at other men when they are deciding whether to believe the obvious. He handed it back without a word. He turned to Darnell. Darnell reached into his back pocket and produced his license. Callahan looked at it. Something shifted in his expression, not softening, more like a recalculation, a decision being made that had nothing to do with the licenses, or the car, or the gas station, and everything to do with something older and uglier and more settled than any of that. "Where are you two coming from?" "A funeral," Marcus said. "Our uncle's funeral. Over in Millhaven." Uh-huh. Callahan said it the way people say it, when they have already decided not to believe the next thing they hear. He walked slowly around the car, hand trailing along the edge of the trunk near where both men were standing, close enough that it felt like an encroachment even though he didn't touch either of them. Not yet. And you're just driving through Hargrove. Passing through on the way home, Marcus said. Needed gas. Weems had come around to the driver's side and was writing something in his notepad, though neither man had given him anything to write. The woman inside the gas station had moved closer to the glass. A teenager at the next pump over had his phone out, but was trying not to be obvious about it. I'm going to need you to put your hands on the vehicle, Callahan said. Not because of anything that had happened, not because of any law being broken, or any call being made, or any threat being offered. He said it because it was the next thing he had decided to do. It was at this exact moment that the door of the black SUV parked at the far edge of the lot, the one that had been sitting there for 11 minutes with its engine idling, which neither officer had noticed, swung open. The woman who stepped out was 38 years old. She was black, medium height, wearing dark slacks and a plain gray jacket that fit the way clothes fit when they are not meant to be noticed. She was not hurrying. She did not raise her voice. She walked across the lot with a kind of unhurried directness that contains more authority in 10 steps than most people project in an entire career. And she was already holding something open in her left hand. A credentials wallet, flat black, with a badge that caught the afternoon light for just a moment as she covered the distance between her car and the pump. Officers, her voice was level, not loud, not soft, the kind of voice that is used to being heard the first time. Special Agent Renee Caldwell, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Callahan turned. He looked at the badge. He looked at the woman. He looked at the badge again. Something happened to his face. The architecture of certainty that had been built there over the last several minutes developed a crack, hairline thin, running from his jaw to somewhere behind his eyes. This stop is going to be documented, Agent Caldwell said. She had not put the credentials away, both of you. I observed the approach. I have been observing this stop from the moment your vehicle pulled in, and I need you to explain to me the specific cause that justified initiating contact with these two men. Weems had stopped writing. Callahan straightened. The instinct toward authority reasserted itself, but it was thinner now, a veneer over something that was starting to understand the situation. Ma'am, we received. Special Agent Caldwell, she said, not sharply, just precisely. A beat of silence moved through the gas station like weather. Special Agent Caldwell, Callahan said, and the words cost him something. We received a description of a vehicle matching this one that was... What description? She had a small notebook out now. Reel 1, paper, pen. She had clicked the pen open before he had finished his sentence. Date and time of the call. Dispatch code. Describe the vehicle you were given. He looked at Weems. Weems was looking at the concrete. There had been no call. There had been no dispatch. She had been sitting in that lot for 11 minutes before they arrived, and she had seen them pull in, and she had watched them make the decision to approach without a radio, without a call, without anything except the sight of two black men in a gas station on a Thursday afternoon. She had watched the whole thing, and she had documented the whole thing. And her documentation was not a notepad. It was a federal body camera that had been recording since the moment she stepped out of her vehicle, its indicator light a small, steady red dot on the lapel of her jacket that neither officer had looked at closely enough to see. I'm going to need both of your badge numbers, she said. and I'm going to need the name of your supervising sergeant." Callahan gave them. His voice had changed. The theatrical quality was gone. What was left was smaller and younger, and considerably less certain of itself. Marcus and Darnell had not moved. Marcus's hands were still resting on the trunk of his car, but lightly now, the posture of a man waiting rather than a man submitting. Darnell had lowered his crackers to his side. He was watching Agent Caldwell with an expression that was not gratitude and not relief. It was something more complicated than either of those. Something that had been building in him for a long time and had not yet found the word it needed. Agent Caldwell turned to them. "Are you two all right?" "We're okay," Marcus said. She looked at him steadily for a moment. "You're not required to stay. You're free to go." He nodded. He looked at his brother. Darnell picked up the gas pump handle, finished what they had come to do, and replaced it in the cradle. They got in the car with the quiet efficiency of people who have learned that leaving cleanly is its own kind of dignity. The Camry pulled out of the lot and onto the highway headed south, toward home, and neither of them looked back. Agent Caldwell had not put away her notebook. She was standing in front of the two officers with the same level, unhurried attention she had brought to the entire encounter, and she was waiting, and the waiting itself was a kind of question. What Callahan did not know, what neither officer knew, was that Agent Caldwell had been embedded in Hargrove County for 3 weeks as part of a federal civil rights task force that had been triggered by 6 prior complaints against the Hargrove County Sheriff's Department, all involving stops of black motorists with no documented cause, all filed in a 14-month window, none of which had produced any disciplinary action because the county's internal review process had found no wrongdoing in any of them. She had not been sent because of any single incident. She had been sent because of a pattern. And she was very, very good at watching patterns complete themselves. She had the full stop on camera. She had Callahan's failure to articulate cause on camera. She had Weems's notes he had made before gathering any information, which was its own kind of document, photographed before he put the notepad away. She had the testimony of the woman at the glass door who had come outside by then and given her name without being asked, because some witnesses understand when something matters. She had the teenager's phone number because he had filmed it and was willing to say so. She made 3 phone calls from the gas station parking lot, standing 6 feet from where Callahan and Weems were still standing, neither of them having been told they could leave. The first call was to the task force supervisor in the field office. The second was to the county sheriff directly, whose voice, when he heard her name and her agency and what she was describing, changed in a way that suggested he had been waiting for this call the way people wait for a diagnosis they already suspect. The third call was brief and technical and involved a records request that would take 4 business days to fulfill, and whose results, when they arrived, would not be favorable to the department. Callahan was placed on administrative leave pending review 11 days later. Weems received a formal letter of reprimand that was entered into his permanent record. The sheriff's department was required to enter a 12-month monitoring period with the task force and to implement de-escalation training that had been recommended in 2 prior years' audits and had not been funded. None of this was on the news. None of it was dramatic. It happened the way accountability usually happens when it happens at all. In offices. In paperwork, in the slow grinding gears of institutional consequence that do not photograph well, but matter enormously to the people they protect. Agent Caldwell finished her 3rd call and stood in the parking lot for a moment after she hung up. The light was going gold and low the way October light does in the late afternoon, laying itself across the concrete and the gas pumps and the fence with its trapped plastic bag that was still rattling in the wind. She thought about Marcus Webb and his brother Darnell in their dark clothes, driving south toward home after burying their uncle. She thought about the particular exhaustion in Marcus's face when he had turned with his hands already rising, the practiced quality of it, the way it lived in the body rather than in the mind, the way it had been learned. She got in her SUV and drove back toward town. 3 weeks later, she was in a diner 2 counties over finishing a report when Marcus Webb walked in with a woman who was probably his wife and 2 kids in school clothes who were arguing about something in the low-key persistent way that children argue when they are fundamentally happy and just killing time. He didn't see her at first. He ordered at the counter and herded the kids into a booth, and then he turned, and his eyes found her the way eyes find things that have been filed somewhere important. He walked over. He stood at the edge of her table, and he said, "I thought that was you." "Small state," she said. He nodded slowly. The kids were already restless in the booth. His wife was watching from across the diner with patient attention. "I want to say thank you," he said. "But I also don't know how to do that for something that should have already been." He stopped. "Start it again." "I want to say thank you. You're welcome," she said. Simply, directly, without the discomfort that sometimes makes people deflect a gratitude they have earned. He went back to his family. She watched him slide into the booth and hand a menu to one of the kids and put his arm around his wife in the easy way of people who have built something together and know its weight. She went back to her report. Outside, the November light was thinner than October's, and the town moved around them both the way towns do. Ordinary, ongoing, full of people whose stories were not visible from the outside, carrying histories that the casual eye would never guess, walking quietly through a world that did not always know what it was looking at. There are people in every room who are not what they appear to be. Sometimes that works against you. Sometimes, if you are very lucky, or if someone made sure to be in the right place, it works for you instead. If you were moved by Agent Caldwell's story of quiet courage and unwavering commitment to justice, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. And be sure to subscribe to Veteran Valor for more stories of America's unassuming heroes.